No.
I'm glad you've liked the book so far.
Okay, so hang on a second. So what this is our second meeting after the spring, our first meeting after the spring Georgia Renaissance Festival to analyze what charts we saw. And on our first meeting, we theorized what we were going to see, as well as tarot cards that we might have seen. So now we're back to discussing what we did see. Go ahead. You were saying something, Kristen. I'm sorry, I interrupted
Oh,
you.
I was just saying that I'm glad that you've been enjoying the book a little bit, at least. I found the second book more interesting, but that was my notes.
Well, and I'll look at that, but I think for your generation, you're reading intermediate to maybe some advanced astrology for the
Mm-hmm.
first time in that book.
Mm-hmm.
I read that back in 1975.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying. There was nothing. I haven't run. I've disagreed with some of his
Yeah.
interpretations, but that's normal for astrologers to see something differently.
Mm-hmm.
We all do that. I mean, that doesn't make him or me or whatever any better or worse. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah, you can look at a chart and see something different, and often sometimes that helps the client more than what you came up with, you
Mm-hmm.
know, unless your ego's getting in the way or whatever. But anyway, who wants to start? And I can bring up that note that I sent out for some ideas just for a second here. Um,
Well, maybe Alan, you could talk about what our predictions were.
yeah, I did. So it's in this note here. So we we were wondering about the Saturn returns in Aries with the Neptune there,
Mm-hmm.
the Saturn in Taurus with the Neptune with the Pluto on their natal Neptune, and then for a year or so within that time period, the South Node was at about 3 degrees, and within a few degrees of that as well in Aquarius. So we were looking at a Neptune, um, Pluto transiting conjunct their Neptune and possibly their South Node.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we were looking at, or I was looking for Saturn in early degrees Leo, so Pluto would have been opposite that.
Mm-hmm.
Saturn in early degrees Aquarius. So Pluto would have been on their Saturn, even though they've had their Saturn return about 6 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, and then I was looking for the midlife people, the Saturn Pluto conjunct in Libra, and then the Jupiter in Libra, which is, or Leo, which is that Rennie that we did. And I'll mention that again when we get to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't look because there's too many, but I also forgot to write down that Ginger was assigned the Mars Saturn's conjunctions in case we saw any of those.
Oh,
Oh.
I saw plenty of them.
Well, good, good. Yeah, yeah. So you can
Mhm.
fill us in on that. So
Mhm.
before we start and then Tara, obviously, what whether the cards correlated to what we came up with in the beginning uh, interaction, which was the Hangman, the Emperor, the Moon, the High Priestess, and the Tower, and maybe I'm forgetting any. I'm not sure. So yeah, before we start, this is our readings count. So I saw 173. Kristen saw 208 because she's got the prime spot out on the outside of the booth, among other attractions or whatever. I'm not sure. Ginger saw 81 because she was busy with her eyes and her feet or her leg. Sorry. Janie saw 68 and Tara saw 51.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So who wants to go first?
Well, I would say Alan, you should go first because the Pluto and the Neptune was like the big one we really predicted a lot of. And
Hmm.
Yes.
you have that you're a Neptunian person,
Yeah.
and you with the graph that you showed us, you got most of those clients. I got a
Right.
handful, but you've got a lot of the Neptunian involved Pluto
Yeah.
transits and other transits as well.
Right. Yeah. So we saw 128 people with um, Pluto on a natal Neptune 0 to 8 degrees. And the stories, I have a lot of stories about them. But some of them are repetitive that they weren't going to tell me other than yes, they were abused. And yes, they were maybe thinking about it or had just talked to a significant other about really working on it, or and so I did see a lot of that. But the
Hmm.
the fun couple of stories were a 27-year-old. Yeah, well, they would have been 26, 27. I've forgotten how old she was, but she had just finished her PhD in psychology as a therapist. And so she's going to be a therapist, and her parents were psychologists. And Pluto's on her south node, Neptune conjunction. And I, I, I couldn't resist saying, and so now you need to be in therapy, right? And she was like, "Oh yeah." In other words, figuring out why she did what her parents wanted her to do. And she was a
Mhm.
Capricorn.
Mm.
So it's certainly a noble cause to get your PhD by the time you're 27, and it's not atypical for a Capricorn to be that um, ambitious. But ambition sometimes drives us to do things that we think our parents and society and everybody else, is in approval of, and so we got some insight there, and that was a fun thing. But the other more fun was also a Capricorn, but she had a Jupiter moon in Aries, and so she also had I don't think the node was there, but she had the Pluto on her Neptune. And the elephant in the room for her was that her father did not live with her mother. Her father was married to somebody else. And her father was taking care of the children and the lover, who was this client's mother.
Mm.
But nobody was allowed to talk about it because he was paying the bills. And, if they actually tell school chums or friends or anybody what was actually going on in her life. And on top of that, with the square of this, the sun in uh, Capricorn square the moon and Jupiter in Aries, she was considered the angry young kid. And I said, well, he had every reason to be angry quite often, and the Jupiter moon is righteous anger. I mean, it bursts out and then it goes away, and then has another explosion another time. I said, and you're actually a Capricorn. You're not that immature at all, but you had reasons to be that angry. And um, she got a lot of insight out of that. That was a really good reading, that suddenly gave her a ton of affirmation um, about the whole situation, both her so-called personality of being an angry young kid, and the elephant in the room of not being able to talk about that. I wish I could come up with more stories, but a lot of them were just quietly admitting that there was abuse, and we're not going to talk about that in 15 minutes, but. So Valerie is still working on this data going into the Alfie Lavoie program.
Hmm.
Um, but 128 people out of 576 is at 22%, or one-fifth of the people that we saw were who would normally not get a reading, or not get a reading until their Saturn return.
Right.
In other words, coming in a few years early, and I think it's pretty clear that the Pluto and the Neptune did that.
Yeah, I agree. And also on the because in some of the cases the nodes were there, right?
Right. The
So
South Node.
I
So
don't,
it's family. That you're dragging in from the past, whether it's past lifetime or reflected in this family, this lifetime.
yeah,
Not the North Node. Yeah.
right. And I can't remember anyone specific, but and this season was like this. It's funny, I remember specifics more from other years. But the reason
Hmm.
why I don't have a lot of specifics is because it was like everyone had the same experience. So the people that I had that had the signature with Pluto passing over their south node or their I'm sorry, the south node Neptune or just the Neptune was that they had been plugging along, trucking along. This was a story that I heard over and over again. They had been trucking along through their 20s and kind of doing what they were supposed to be doing. And now they were either questioning it or it was one of those like, what's this all for? So, all of these people either had Saturn in Aries, or even a couple of them had the very early, like Saturn in Taurus. And you're right, it's they're contemplating these big questions that many of us from earlier generations didn't contemplate until our late 20s. So that
Right.
was the consistency that I saw.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've mentioned this over my last 20 years, watching Pluto go over people's Neptunes. And for the most part, I was severely disappointed with the Neptune and Sagittarius crowd. Time and time again, I got a deer in the headlights look like, well, I don't know, I go to church, or I do something, or they weren't questioning anything. And the Neptune and Capricorn folks, when Pluto went over that group, um, were a little more aware of how screwed their generation is in terms of overarching housing shortages, lack of pension, lack of unions, so, just all the changes that have generally happened. But I think that this group almost immediately did, maybe because the node was going through there, almost immediately affirmed what I was saying, and had insight into it, and said, "Oh yeah, I'm not just really questioning what's going on."
Mhm.
Tara, did you run into anything that
Something
triggered that?
very, yeah, I think there's something very similar to what both of you are saying that I came across, and where I feel like I believe in the fall there were a lot more people kind of trying to find their purpose. This was a lot of people that I had either just coming out of college or going from, either like high school to college sometimes, or people that were just, working in one area but wanting to live out a passion. So it was always there's this one thing on the other side that they really want to do. And here's this other thing. Oh, I feel like I can have stability, doing this and sort of being in this transition, even though they were, kind of coming out of college, there was still this, okay, but what direction am I going in? What do I want to follow? What do I want to really be doing? Do I want to kind of play it safe, or do I want to really go for the big thing or go for the gusto? Um, so yeah, I feel like a lot of them were at a lot of the people were at this crossroad of figuring out which side they wanted to decide on.
Yeah.
Did you have any cards that fell that were consistent?
Well, the interesting thing is when we spoke about it last time, the emperor coming up to symbolize Aries, I had the emperor come up possibly the most, out of
Huh.
all the cards that it's like just consistently. And I had the hanged man coming up, and the emperor came up, upright in reverse sometimes as well. And then I had the hanged man too, and that's all about looking at things from another perspective, having that, it's kind of like being in that waiting room of figuring it out. And sometimes we want these very quick answers and we want to know now. And sometimes it's not just oh, I'm going to just figure this out right away. Um, if it is, then it's having the trust to kind of move through that. But I think there's definitely sort of this like, well, one of you just saying like an incubation period. Did I hear one of you guys say that before?
I did not, I don't think,
Oh,
but
okay.
it
But
certainly
it's
could be
kind of that, yeah.
because the astrology of it is that Pluto's going to go back and forth over this area. It's not going to be over anytime soon for these folks. And we saw 128 of them. I mean, it's going to now whether that's social mores and values and actual. I mean, we're in the middle of uh, a total breakdown in some ways of this country. Um, Let me go check my pond, see if there's any Antifa out there. Sorry. Um, so there may be that, but also their own personal, Armageddons. I did not. I don't think I met any people that were facing any sort of Armageddon. In other words, in their own personal, they weren't falling apart,
Hmm.
but there were no Sun Neptunes there, or which is what I was when that hit my chart. In other words, there weren't other planets there. And I probably did see like an occasional Venus in Aquarius, but I don't think I wrote that down or researched that. Kristen?
Yeah, I feel that the people that I saw that had Pluto going over Neptune or the South Node, they like kind of like what everybody has kind of said, they're looking for answers or uh they're not sure, what they're doing or they're trying to make decisions or they're going through a transformation. And I feel like I repeated a lot of things, right? Like Tara and Ginger are both saying, like, I feel like I was saying the same thing this year. Instead of having like these very clear moments, there was a lot of the same, like, yes, you're shedding your skin. You're going through a difficult time right now, and you're going to, and depending on what else was happening, um, I feel like I had a lot of conversations about people like that. And I also had a few people that had like psychic things happening to them, like psychic awakenings or things like that, that we were able to talk about, like, okay, well, what does that mean to you? And what are you doing with it? Like, where are we focusing that? Um, and trying to give them some tools for like self-reflection since that's what they're going through. Um, but I feel like I particularly said like shedding skin a lot. Like I
Hmm.
think I said that a lot. Um, but yeah. And then there were some people too that were making like trying to make really big decisions. Like, do I quit my job? And I really don't like what's going on, especially like I had gotten a few people that were in like the military sector or the like worked in the public sector in some way. And, they're like, with everything that's happening, I want to leave, but I'm really close to retiring.
Mhm.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
There was a lot of that going on that I was like, okay, well, let's look deeper at what's going on and see like, is it good for you to leave or are you meant to be staying there and like doing something else? So,
Hmm. I don't know how what year that reading was, but that's a typical other phenomenon. Is that the American work life doesn't match the second Saturn return at age
hmm
58 to 60. So I've had lots of readings, they're 58 to 60 and they're done,
Yeah.
they're not learning anything
Oh
anymore,
yeah.
you know.
Let me see, because I think I took a picture of that chart that one of those charts particularly, because it was very interesting.
Uh-huh.
So I'm gonna see if I can find it really quick.
Yeah.
Well, and while you look for that, Kristen, something a memory you triggered because you said the psychic part.
Hmm.
And I don't know who might watch this outside of our group. So just for a backstory, we do this work in Georgia, which means that on Saturdays the bar is open as soon as people walk in, and on Sundays it doesn't open until 12:30.
hmm
So what
Right.
I noticed was a lot of people were seeking advice, but would not do it until they had a beer in their hand. So it was like they had real questions, and I do remember this one in particular client coming in, and it was a very early reading, probably right when we opened, maybe at 10:30. And this
hmm
person had a beer in their hand, and they were asking me very specific questions, these big life questions. And I remember saying, you don't want to numb out, as
Mm.
gulping their beer to like take in something that they do want to know, but also don't want to feel. So I
Mhm.
don't know if anyone else had that experience, but then on Sundays, it's like we almost didn't work at all until 12:30 or 1, until the
Yeah.
bars opened. Or
Yeah, it's both a Sunday and a beer thing. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Um, hmm. Um, I'm looking through this my notes here on these actual boards,
hmm
so we'll get back to some of that.
I found that chart and it's
Good.
actually it's Pluto on their Uranus, which was happening
Mhm.
with is that the sun and Mars conjunction in Aquarius, very close. So that makes more sense.
So what was it with them?
It was they were asking about like should they change their career? Like, am I supposed to be staying in the public sector in this administration or do I leave?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And what do you have a birth date on that one?
I might. It looks like it was the May 10th when I did it, and I even
Well,
think I took notes on the
no,
side.
I'm thinking though, Uranus was at 0 degrees of Aquarius in January
hmm
1996. So through
hmm
96, it would have been a 96 person, and
Yes.
um, so they would have been 30. They would have been on their Saturn return, right?
hmm yes, they had just had their Saturn return.
Right. So they're getting that's an interesting point, and I thought I counted those, but how many we saw, but I don't see my
Mhm.
notes here of how many Pluto on the Uranus. But yeah, I mean, somebody on their Saturn return with Pluto hitting their Uranus, where would you land?
Exactly.
Compound with a bunch of other families living off the land.
Hmm.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
A middle finger to the administration, like you had said.
Yeah.
Right, except it's your Saturn return. You're supposed to be growing up at that at that point. You're not 23.
In
Hmm.
this world, it might be growing up.
No, yeah, I agree. I'm just saying it's an it's a cognitive dissonance at that age,
Yeah.
knowing that moving to a farm in Tennessee is not going to get you a mortgage and a
Yeah.
credit rating, all the things that a 30-year-old should be, starting to look at, and a baby and all the rest of the things that happen with a Saturn return. Yeah, let's go on to something. Saturn returns. What do you want to? Let's see. What else do we have?
Mm.
We saw 58 Saturn returns in Aries,
Mm.
with Neptune there, and that was a topic um, that we discussed, and Megna discussed that with us in terms of the Neptune dissolving, um, what the Saturn should be bringing, in terms of decisions and all that. Did anybody run into that? I don't have any great stories about that.
Yeah, I have several. And again, it was just like repeated. Um, I am Virgo rising, so it's not, you know, it doesn't fall on deaf ears to know that like I saw so many Virgo risings. So the younger Virgo risings that were going through their Saturn return just went through 2.5 years of Saturn opposing their ascendant. So
Yeah,
they all were like, good God, aren't the hard times over? And they went through huge changes with that Saturn opposing their ascendant because Neptune was also there for the last 14 years. So if they were young people, it was like this Neptune had been a part of them growing up, right? In the
right.
seventh house. And then on top of it, for the last year of Saturn in Pisces, it was being squared by Jupiter in their career houses. So these were young people that, for lack of a better description, already went through their Saturn return. And now
Yeah,
they're like, are you for real? I'm forced to grow up. I just did
right.
that, I
Yeah,
love my parents and I have custody of my siblings. That was another thing I saw a lot of were siblings fighting for their siblings. And it wasn't necessarily anything going on in their third house. Was some of that, but it was that Saturn being in the seventh and having to be an adult when you're 25. And now
yeah,
they're
and
going through their Saturn return and they're like, this is a joke.
no doubt. Yeah, and the other part of the Saturn in the seventh house is not just the definition of the seventh house, but you're entering the upper hemisphere. I mean, your next 14 years are about your time for your own personal growth is over. Get it together because you're out in the world, and so that's so much so similar to a Saturn return, that exactly what you're saying. Haven't I already done this? Haven't I made these choices and gone through this difficult, transition, and now you're telling me I have to do that again?
Yeah.
And or you could have told them that maybe you made the wrong choices and Saturn's gonna, slam you. I wouldn't tell them. I'm kidding. I wouldn't tell them that, but that's sometimes the case, is
Hmm.
that when you make, choices 2 years before your Saturn return, and they're the wrong choices for your destiny or whatever we think, God or whatever the universe has in store for us, yeah, you can get slammed, right away.
Mhm.
I
Hmm.
think a lot of the advice that I gave people was, you know, you can do hard things. So
Hmm.
to know that, you know, you can get through this. You've already
Yeah,
proven to yourself that you can.
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I would add that um, with that particular transit we're talking about, I felt like I had people in that 25-ish group, the ones that I did see, were like not sure how to communicate with the outer world, right? Like they were struggling, like, how do I be here? Like we were saying in the upper hemisphere, and like asking, how do I communicate professionally? How do I be, in with people, talk with people? So there was a lot of discussion of that where I
Mm.
was just like, honestly, just talk to them. Be
Mhm.
clear and be like honest. Like, what are your values? What are you trying to communicate? Um, and they're, how people are. They're like, I don't know how to talk to people.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I wish I had a definite sense of what the Saturn return people were going through, and you've given me a lot, Ginger, but in my readings, I didn't get as much of an insight. Now,
Hmm.
maybe that's just the Neptune being there, on their Saturn transit. Um, I got more vague. Yeah, I know. I need to do that kind of a thing. We'll see as Saturn finally gets back into Aries, and because it entered and then retrograded what after last fall, but somewhere in we saw a little bit in last fall and then a little bit now, but really it's just at early degrees. Whereas now it's not. It's at 13 and about to retrograde.
Hmm.
So,
Oh, and I am just realizing too, a lot of people in my generation, the late Gen Xers, they have Pluto in Libra. So I definitely saw that too. So Saturn is opposing their Pluto,
Hmm.
like mid to late Gen Xers, people born
mm,
in the mid 70s up to like, or even early millennials, although
yeah,
Pluto's a little later.
I'm a generationalist with Pluto, so I would call them the millennial A group. There's a split to two groups in the millennials, but it depends,
Mhm.
Um, but definitely the Saturn and the Neptune are going to be opposite their natal Pluto.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know what that's going to do. I didn't even look for that actually. That's an interesting point. Do they question how they fit into their generation? Obviously.
We don't.
Yeah, the elder millennials. Yeah.
I'm a
Yes.
Gen Xer.
I didn't say you. I mean, a real Gen Xer. I mean, when have they questioned anything about themselves? They're just totally superior to the last generation. They know it, and whatever. I mean,
No,
the-
we know nothing. The thing is that we don't care.
Hmm.
And nobody believes that we don't care.
yeah, it gives new meaning to apathy. Your whole generation.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go on here. I don't want to get lost in that generation. That's not what I want there. Sorry. Um, Whoops.
While you're
Wrong.
looking stuff up, Alan, I'll add a little
Uh-huh.
random bit. I had every once in a while I pull these other oracle cards, final cards if I get a chance. And one thing that was a commonality, like that came up the most, was a card that has a trigger statement, and it says, "I am boiling over." Like that's a, ruminating thought that somebody might have. And I found that interesting, being this time of all this heightened Aries and this fire.
Yeah.
Have that card also come up the most, in that. And there's a lot. I don't remember how many cards are in that deck, but there are a lot of, like, it is a very big deck. So for like just another card to come up again is, uh, you know, uh, pretty odd. But I had that card come up, on multiple occasions. And, it just seems like it's a time to, get the pot out of the fire, and kind
Yeah. Yeah.
of, you know, uh, things were, boiling up where it felt, I felt like there was an intensity with people. And I had I think a little bit of a different experience. I think it was you that was saying it, Ginger, where people that I spoke to, some of them were really going through something and going through something very heavy and aware of it, and willing to work through it. I think if anything, some of the people that I spoke with, they weren't even aware of their feelings because of everything going on and so many things happening. And like two of the cards I had come up a lot were the Ten of Swords and the Ten of Wands. And the tens in the tarot, I tell people all the time, is nines are like what we would think of as tens. Tens are an overabundance of something, like, which can be good. Sometimes it's great, it's good, but even like a good thing, there can be too much. We don't know what to do and we're overwhelmed. And the Ten of Swords and the Ten of Wands are what came up for me
Hmm.
in the readings a lot. And both upright and reversed. But some people were definitely, with those swords, are bogged down. There's a lot of words, a lot of miscommunication, of just like probably having everything that everyone says to them get to them and ruminate about that. And then the Wands is still doing something that you're passionate about, but it being overwhelming, of having too many things probably on the to-do list of like, hey, I'm going towards this thing that I feel really great about, but oh my goodness, it's really burning me out and I'm tired and not like, can I keep going, and do I want to, keep doing this? And yeah, just looking back and seeing a lot of the commonalities was very interesting, but I really got a kick out of that, from us talking about the tarot, and to have that oracle card come up so many times. I
Hmm.
found that really interesting for that time.
Mm.
Yeah.
For the
Yeah.
millennial.
The 10 also could be the Neptune and the Saturn are both in the new first sign of the zodiac. So
Mhm.
it's an ending and a new beginning for lots of people,
Yeah.
and I haven't.
Numerically, I had the 28th. Most of the people that I saw, they were born on the 28th. So two and
Okay.
eight makes 10. So
Um, yeah, but 28 in astrology is actually about 7 degrees into the next sign. So it doesn't necessarily always correlate.
mm,
The
beginning.
Jupiter in Leo, um, I think we all met. I've forgotten her name already, or I can't pronounce her name. Annika, was it?
Mhm. I think it was Annika.
I think it's Annika. Annika, yeah. So she's buying a booth, and Pluto's opposite her early degrees, Jupiter in Leo, and so I guess I would say that she worked through some of the difficulties because Walter is trying to sell her the booth. Walter is the one with the Sun, Saturn, Pluto conjunction in Leo. She's got Jupiter in Leo, so that fits, taking over and bringing new life to the booth. And the fair just poured cold water all over that. Well, you've got to, jury in and this and that to get permission and all that stuff. And I guess she was still going through a lot of that. But what I resisted telling her was that, yeah, of course, and Jupiter and Leo just expected it to all fall in your lap just because you are. You're wonderful and you're beautiful and you're great energy and you have Jupiter and Leo. You know, I'm a bit cynical sometimes about Jupiter and Leo, but it's an abundance of positivity, let's say, without necessarily crossing your T's and dotting your I's and getting all of the details in place. But that was the only, well, the other um, story that I had was somebody in their late 40s, also with Jupiter, but Jupiter in early degrees Leo. And I think I told you guys this, but to reiterate, she had got for midlife, she had gotten advanced degrees in nursing, but then went to work for a medical supply company that has a new product and it's in hematology, and I've forgotten what it was supposed to do. Might have been chelation of minerals or something like that. And the company asked her to take a 10% cut in her income in return for future stock dividends if the product sells. And Pluto was exactly opposite that natal Jupiter. And I couldn't give her an answer. I mean, I didn't have an answer. You know, I didn't know the product for one thing. I do know that the medical field, is rife with products that want to sell that don't. We just talked about all the logic of it, but I couldn't. I mean, Jupiter's positive in Leo, but then again, it can just be overly optimistic. When it comes to the stock market or when it comes to those types of things. And with Pluto opposite, I had to at least tell her that that uh, there's a very good chance that it wouldn't succeed, that it would be stopped. Because sometimes Pluto stops us for no other reason than we don't know why. You know, Pluto on my Mars did that to my book. My midlife book got accepted by Llewellyn, and then it just died in Llewellyn, with the editor from hell and everything else. But it was Pluto going over my Mars in the ninth house. I finally self-published, Speaking of self-publishing, we can take a quick one here. This is my ad for UAC. Oh, come on. I already opened that. I'm sorry, this is I already opened that. See it?
Yep.
Hmm.
There we
Mhm.
go. Yeah, so that's what I paid for. It's going to be in the UAC uh, catalog or whatever they hand out. So you can point that out when you're there, okay, Ginger?
I sure will.
Yeah. You like this one here down in the lower right?
I know it has me giggling. I do like that.
Yeah, yeah, I'll get around to it. There's an interesting Neptune almost into Aries in 1860 that I hadn't run into in terms of history. That was one of the first lending libraries in England.
Hmm.
And the guy had almost a what do you call it? A monopoly on lending books. It was huge. They went all over the world with the British Empire. This is 1860s into 1880s.
Mhm.
Um, he was charging 2 guineas a year and for constant lending, Moody's, Mudies, Moody's Library. So anyways,
Mm.
that was another Neptune into Aries, spreading knowledge, yeah, but sorry to digress. Okay, I guess so. The other one I did have was that guy, Kristen, that knew he wanted to see me.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
yeah,
Yes.
so intense, and he's very Plutonian, but Pluto was opposite his Jupiter in Leo, and he was setting himself up to ask me if he was going to succeed at um, um, a job interview, which took place later in June, at one of the premier financial services in the country.
Oh,
And everything looked bad. And, and opposition's everywhere. So on the day of the interview, and so a
mhm.
moon opposition, and I've forgotten how many things were bad, but the Pluto was opposite as Jupiter, and so we had to discuss it within that context of you're setting yourself up for possible failure. And and we only have 15 minutes here, but let's talk about, why you're setting yourself up, for this, and you might get the job. I don't know. Again, this Pluto opposite the Jupiter, I really don't know. Maybe if I was a trad astrologer, I could have pulled out a part or fortune or something like that. But that's hard to do on the street anyways, with no, real distinct time of birth and all that stuff. So, yeah, that was another one. He was intense. I mean, he's
Yeah,
he's
he was.
he, but he's talking about going from making hundreds of thousands to making millions, and I'm like, yeah. And how much did you tip me?
He better have.
I think he did, but yeah.
No, I just remember like going to him and being like, "Hey, like I have an opening." And and he was like, "No, I'm waiting for Alan." And I was like,
Okay.
"Heard."
Yeah. Yeah.
That was one of my favorite moments out of the whole fair is there was this one day, it was Alan, Kristen, and me, and there were these three ladies that came up right when we opened. It was like we only had like 2 or 3 days where people were there when we opened, and they all wanted readings, and I'm sitting back, right? Because I couldn't stand up and say hello to them. And I'm thinking to myself, I know exactly who's coming to me. And then they all parted and they all went to their prospective person. And of course, I got the exact one that I thought. And it was a Virgo rising with a
Yeah.
Mars Saturn conjunction. And I'm like, of course you are.
I
Yeah.
remember those ladies. And I think
Yeah.
the one that I had a lot of Aquarian stuff happening, which makes sense because I'm an Aquarius rising.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've forgotten what mine had on that one.
Hmm.
Any
It's
other
it's just
que-
funny how you can tell when they approach, you know who's going to Alan. Like you
yeah.
know who wants a tarot reading.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, you're like, yeah, you don't want me. You want her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh. I do know I also had a few readings with like Pluto on Saturn for a few people, if we're talking about Pluto still transiting. So that
Yeah,
was
good, good.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What happened with them? Because I
Just
don't have any stories on those. Yeah.
I think with the biggest thing with them was that they had a lot of rods in the fire, kind of like a lot of different things on their horizon that they could choose from. Um, they also had, I think Neptune was opposing their Jupiter as well. So they were like, had a lot of like these things happening, but no real concrete anything. Like, do you know what I mean? Um, and they were interested in like, okay, well, what do I focus on? Where am I supposed to put my focus? And, and with Saturn there and Pluto and Saturn together, I was just kind of like, I mean, I think that the things that you're not really thinking of or looking at are going to be the ones that are going to be most fruitful and most beneficial to you, instead of the most obvious ones.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Pluto can be like that sometimes.
Yeah. But the theory to me would also be that their structure is being torn apart right now.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, did they does Saturn and Aquarius care about that, or
I
recognize
think
it, or
so.
worry about? I mean, a Saturn and Taurus would,
Yeah.
but
Um,
and they
I
do.
don't know.
I
Yeah.
think so. I remember a handful of those readings, and one in particular was, when you think about it, they went through their Saturn return at the beginning of COVID. And so I had a couple where they had to make some sort of sacrifice, such as a marriage, right? It's like they're
Mm.
still
Oh.
young, right?
Mm.
Maybe
Yeah.
they got married right before COVID, like in 2019. And then now it was that they actually thought maybe they needed to separate from their spouse.
Mm. Yeah. That's a breakup of a structure that you've just created.
Like
Mhm.
not that long ago. But then you think about it too, in 2019, that's a 7-year Saturn cycle. So you're starting that Saturn square, right? Of the
Oh, you
marriage.
mean right now they were wanting to
Right,
break up? Oh,
right,
okay.
right.
Yeah,
Not
So it's
not
that
like
makes
soon.
dual
sense.
hitting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've run into that too. I don't have any significant or exact examples, but that's the first Saturn square, age 35-ish to 36, when it doesn't feel right to break up what you've created in your 30s, because you should be on a roll by that time. Your kids are 6 years old or whatever, and all of the things that your 30s should be healthy doing. So yeah, that first Saturn square um, can be can be something. There was I haven't found it now, but there was one reading that you did, Kristen, from Italy.
Oh, yes, I did.
Do you
I
remember?
remember her. I don't really remember her chart, but I remember her face.
Oh, okay. So you don't remember the chart though.
Not particularly. Um, Unfortunately.
Okay. I'd have to find that through the
Yeah,
chart.
like if I could see like one of the things, then I would be like, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. But
Right.
and I feel unfortunately, I feel like because there were so many charts that I was seeing that were so similar to each other,
Hmm.
um, the individual stories themselves that people were experiencing and going through, kind of nothing stood out particularly strongly, if that makes sense. Um, but I think we all kind of felt that way a little bit.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it can be overwhelming, just the amount of people that we saw. I just ran into one I had written here, the Pluto on a Saturn Moon conjunction at 0 degrees of Aquarius, and she was in a Mormon cult, and
Oh.
she was just breaking out of that. And the with her, with it's a Saturn Moon, and so her family was hanging on to her. I mean, this was current, that not letting her go. And Pluto on her Saturn is like, no, I'm out of here. I
Hmm.
can't stay here anymore. Uh, I'm going to take a short break. I'll be right back.
Hmm.
So what have you ladies been up to?
Oh, I got accepted into Mystic South's divination room for next month.
Yay.
Oh, what was that?
It's the Mystic South Conference that happens yearly in July. I don't know if either of you have heard of it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I'm on their email list and they sent out like a thing for anyone to apply. And I was like, yeah, okay. And they had so many tarot readers apply, but only like four astrologers.
Oh,
So I was like, okay, yeah, that's great. So I'm very happy that I got in. I'm very excited about it. Um,
Congratulations.
yeah, so we'll see who shows up and what their charts say. Um,
that is so cool.
Yeah. Where is
mhm.
that again? That's not in Georgia, right?
It is. It's in Atlanta.
Oh,
It's
okay. Oh, is it?
the
Okay.
conference is actually really close to where I live,
Yeah.
up in my area, um, like northern eastish of the loop. But
Nice. Well, congratulations.
Hmm.
thank you.
Well deserved.
What happened?
Thank you.
What did I miss?
Oh, I was telling them, Ginger asked like what was going on for us, and I was like, oh, I just got accepted into Mystic South. So that
Oh, right,
was,
right.
yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
So what do they mean accepted? So
I
do
had
they
to
have a
apply.
yeah, I know, but I mean do they question your I don't
Um,
what do they interview you or what?
I mean, they wanted me to write like to tell them how long that I had been doing it and like what my experiences were and like the format for my sessions in that sort of environment. And I actually really like the format that we do, like our 15-minute like teaser charts that we do. They're real charts, they're not a tease, but you know what I mean, like to get for having clients want to book a full reading to like really dig into their entire chart.
Yeah.
Because you can't do that in 15 minutes. You really can't. Um, but yeah, that was pretty much it. Like they, and I guess they looked at my stuff and said, yeah, you're you're good. We'll have you. So
Good. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And where is that? You said
Here in
you told me.
Atlanta, it's at one of the conference centers
It
near
says it's
where I
at
am.
the Crown Plaza.
Yes.
Mhm.
Thank you, Ginger.
Looking it up.
Okay.
I'm like, what is this? Yeah, I'd never.
Yeah. Some of the workshops this year, I wasn't as excited about as other years, but a few of them look really good. Yeah, there was like some sort of like ancestral one that looked interesting, and then like a throat singing one.
Oh,
Ooh.
that sounds good.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Huh.
And Tara,
I
are you?
I ran into another Pluto on the Saturn. This
Hmm.
woman born in 91, she was a Scorpio with a sun square that Saturn. She was hilarious. Um, she to me, she had discovered Ram Dass. Do you guys know who Ram Dass is?
Oh, yes.
You would, right? And she was all agog about, how special he is. And I'm like, yeah, that was our Bible. I mean, whatever. That's good.
Be here
So,
now.
be here now. Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
be here meow.
Huh?
Yeah.
That's just my cat humor. Be here
Uh,
meow.
I'll be here now. Yeah.
That's just
Or
my cat humor.
Yes.
The guru is GURU. Yeah. All these 1970s things that we were swimming in back in the 70s. What's next here? What
Mhm.
else we have?
Yeah, I feel like I did see a lot of clients come in with the mid 90s to the late no, mid to late no, mid to early 90s, sorry. I feel like we
Yeah,
saw
you
a
did.
lot of those.
Yeah. Yeah. You did see that.
Hmm.
Um, I let's see. So we did not see a whole lot of Saturn in Leos.
Mm-mm.
Um, doesn't surprise me, but that they may not come in, even if their lives were falling apart. They may not.
I
They
mean, I
may not.
think they would be too embarrassed to come in and ask
Yeah,
for help.
yeah. They might be. Um, and they went through their well, they went through the earlier ones went through their Saturn return in 2005. So that would have been 20 years ago. But
Hmm.
they would have been 19 or 20 now. So we just didn't get a lot of people,
Hmm.
does not surprising.
Or they could have been almost 80. Like one very special Saturn and Leo person I know.
Yeah, yeah. Or Walter, who the
Yeah.
potter that the Rennie potter that we were talking about, who's been through chemo.
Hmm. Oh, but
Definitely.
that does make me remember, sorry, Alan, to cut you off, but it made me remember that I did see a lady that was on her second Saturn return.
Hmm.
Um, and she was like loving life. Like she was just like, you know, and we talked about some of the themes and that she had maybe seen when she had her first Saturn return and, how it might show up for her this time around. And she was like, girl, I got that. I was just like, yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah,
She had
30
me
years
cracking up
later.
the whole time.
Yeah. How about midlifers?
I didn't have a whole lot of them. I had a
Mm-mm.
handful.
I would
Yeah,
agree with that.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, same.
I
Didn't have a lot either.
I had I've forgotten if I had any more or less. I think less, but we had uh 23, which is not a whole lot, uh all told. And this is a group, that would have been my child that was miscarried back in 1983, when I was a miscarriage with my ex-wife. I mean, that was part of the whole disaster. Um, but the reason is also that they have a Pluto Saturn Jupiter conjunction in Libra. So I keep trying to get some sort of understanding out of what they might be going through. And of course, the Saturn's just starting to hit that, and it's not going to hit their Pluto until next year, next spring. Actually, it'll be at about 20 degrees, which is where their Pluto would have been around that, closer around that time. Um, but I I got a lot of I got a lot of typical midlife stories, which is, yeah, I finished this part of a job or whatever, and I need to go on, and I know that, and I'm, going back to school or that kind of a thing. Um, but what I really am interested in is, are they are they actually a version of the Pluto Saturn conjunction, uh, which in Libra is least likely to want to use the power that they have with that Pluto Saturn. And so a Pluto Saturn theoretically could be very destructive, um, let's tear everything apart type of an aspect. And in all the years, the past few years, 2 or 3 years that I've been starting to look at that, I still don't have any insight that they know the power that they have.
Mhm.
Uh, as opposed to, again, I keep mentioning Walter, but I did his chart a few years ago, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I know that." I was starting to talk about, um, power of the Pluto Sun conjunction in Leo, and with the Saturn there, and he said, "Oh yeah," he said, "I'm the bully's bully." So he would wipe up on bullies. He would, he would watch that all that dynamic and stop them, And this is who he was as a kid,
Mhm.
So it's a very powerful, and then we were just looking at Jeff Green's chart. I wonder what energy was there. In my generation, they were born a few years before me, and that was the greasers, the bikers. Very tough, crowd. Um, I don't get that out of the Pluto and Saturn and Libra folks, which are now in midlife, which is why I'm looking to see if
Mhm.
what they've done with that aspect. And so far, and you obviously more women than men, and so far they're still in their marriages and kind of avoiding the whole thing, I think,
Hmm.
but that's I don't mean to be judgmental. It's just that I don't have a handle on because I don't get it. I don't see what their insight is yet.
Hmm.
Anybody else? I know I'm the midlife expert, having written a book on it, but I mean, having written a book on it, I do look for that. I like doing midlife readings. I like helping people through that stage, but yeah, it's not happening with this group very much.
I don't remember seeing anybody with this aspect. But hypothetically, I would imagine that having these planets in Libra makes them a, I would say maybe frustrated with injustice.
Mhm.
So they might be with the state of the world. They may be somewhat paralyzed in or depressed or not being able to move forward with things that are going on in their own lives because of of the injustice that is seen all around us. So
It
it
could be.
literally might not even be on their minds or they don't have capacity for it.
Yeah.
That's true.
It could be, or they just don't want to admit that life sucks that bad or can suck that bad. It being in Libra. That's by the way, 1981 through 83,
Mhm.
folks.
Well, one of
Uh,
the beauties of Libra is that it can see both sides. So maybe they do recognize that, they may feel a certain way, but then maybe they can see their spouse's side, or their whatever, fill in the blanks side.
yeah. Well, we'll see more in the fall. I mean, when Saturn's fully into Aries and
Yeah.
opposing their Saturn, we'll see if we see any more.
Mhm.
Any other ideas or issues?
I was gonna say that since we were talking about Saturn transiting, or no, Pluto transiting on Saturn, natal Saturn, it made me think of like or tarot wise, it made me think of the Tower card of
Yeah.
everything just crumbling and falling
Yeah, we
but
mentioned that before the show. Did you see that, Tara?
I saw the tower card a bit. I mean, not as much as some of the other cards though that I brought up. It did come up, but it was not prominent.
Mhm.
Yeah, we didn't see that many Saturn in Aquarius anyway. Not out of the ordinary, so to speak. Um, but maybe their lives are falling apart and they couldn't afford to come to the show. Renaissance Festival couldn't afford to get a reading, or
I
too
mean, or they
depressed.
were using escapist tendencies in other ways. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Or they were too depressed to get a reading or, or too afraid or
Too depressed to get out of bed.
yeah. It's a heavy transit, definitely. All right. So any other discussions?
Mm-mm.
I think I would say one thing that most people that I saw were Leos. It's another fire sign. And I saw a lot of Pisces, Libra, and then Scorpio. Those were
Hmm.
the top signs that came to me. And I don't think I had any Virgo. I think I had somebody on a cusp though. Um, but no true
Hmm.
Virgo. Interesting.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to
Yeah.
see what the fall brings.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
especially after the summer.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it will bring more of the same, but more definitive, I think, as Saturn gets into the sign, and
Mhm.
actually starts to affect some people. I mean, what we saw now was just Saturn, hovering around Neptune
Mhm.
in the early degrees and not really giving them
Yeah,
any
and
sort of.
honestly, I'm sorry, Alan, to cut you off.
No,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that honestly, I remember when we were talking about, all of the Aries transits that were going to be happening, with Neptune and um, Saturn and all of it, or not Saturn, Mars. Mars was there. But
Right.
that with all of it, and we were talking about like how I remember we talked about specifically how it felt like one pedal or one foot on the gas, one foot on the brake, Saturn, and
Mhm.
then driving in fog, like everything is obscured. And I feel
Yeah.
like I used that particular verbiage for several people when we were having that particular transit happening when everything was like really tight and close together. And they were like, "Yes, oh my gosh, like I know I have to do something. I can feel it, but where am I going?
Hmm.
I don't know where to like go forward or backwards or which way is up. I don't know."
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
interesting that we saw that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it hit my ascendant, so the symptoms that I was having that I mentioned, my health issues have gotten much better, you know. And I saw my doctors both, urinary and regular physician, and I mentioned, I said, I can correlate the symptoms to the astrology, but I don't want to bore you guys, with that. He was talking about my PSAs, and he said they're at their nadir. I said we call that the nadir.
Oh.
But the it means the same thing at the base of your chart, the bottom, the baseline,
Yeah.
which is what he was tracking. Well, yeah, okay. So I'm busy trying to get out of Carolina. Um, haven't found anybody to work it for me, trying to sell my camper, which leaks, but otherwise is in a good position there.
Did that guy get back to you?
He chose not to get it. Two other people are interested. I don't know. I mean, um, they they have a long, not to be hurtful, Tara, but they have a long list of tarot readers that want to get into the show. And she was very graceful, Gracie, saying that what I did is very special.
Mm.
They've, as I was telling Kristen, they've never told me that before in the
Well,
last 10 years, but
I
nice of
mean,
her to nice of her to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was nice. I mean, I would, if I could find someone to stay with and bring my cats, I would do it, but I can't figure
Yeah,
that.
no, I'm not saying you should.
Yeah.
Um,
We all don't have your energy, sir.
no,
Not anymore.
I don't think I've ever had your energy.
no, I do, I do have a Grand Trend Fire, don't I? Yeah, yeah, I know. I'm starting to slow down. I'm 73.
Thank God, because
Farting.
I'd all catch up with you. Time to speed up.
Yeah, but with Saturn opposing all my planets, I mean, I'm just working really hard on piano. It is interesting because after hours and hours of practice, I can more clearly see what my positives and my negatives are and my downsides and my skills, especially in arpeggio bass lines and knowing what I can do and what I can't do. And it's hard work with a Saturn opposition, but it's good work, so I'm not too worried about that.
I'm still
Losing
doing
weight.
piano on Duolingo.
Yeah.
Huh?
I'm still doing piano on Duolingo.
What's Duolingo?
It's the language app, but they
Mhm.
added like math, chess, and music to it.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
Yeah.
we're doing a lot of chess to
Oh, wow.
finally play with my uncle.
It's cool.
That is
That's
nice.
interesting. Yeah. I played in college my first year and haven't played since. We
Oh,
we would skip
we'll
classes all day and play chess all day.
have to play a game sometime.
Yeah,
Mm.
I'm sure you'll beat me. I mean, I don't know.
I'd love to referee.
Okay, sounds
Can be a
good.
cheerleader for both sides.
Yeah,
There we go. Yeah.
love it.
Well, we can play duets on piano. I have three pianos
Okay,
now.
okay, let's do
I
it.
bought I have two keyboards, but I bought a new folding keyboard so I can take it to jams, so I can fit
Oh,
in a
fun.
corner. Yeah,
Oh,
the jams. All righty. Well, unless there's anything else, we can probably wrap it up.
Hmm. I don't think so. Yeah.
Any other insights? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Mhm.
Thanks,
you.
Alan.
We
Yeah, thanks,
will
Alan.
It was a
we will
good season.
see
Yeah.
you in the fall, and I'll send out. I don't think I need anything adjusted on this, edited or anything. But I guess I'll send it out so you guys can review it if you want.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. See you guys.
Good to see
Good night,
everyone.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
See you. Bye.